Right, I've introduced Kevin. This is his first talk. We're going to give him a huge warm welcome as the last talk of the day. Please welcome Kevin.
Yeah, as Mike said, that's my first talk ever, and I'm really excited to be here. I want to share some experience and mindset I just recently developed, which is what would Vendure do? That's something that I want to share with you guys. I know it's the last presentation as well, so we might be a little full of information, so we will keep it chill. First of all, I'm Kevin. I'm CTO of Finding, which is a peer-to-peer sharing platform, basically like Airbnb, but for everyday items. And we are using Vendure there as well since the very first version, even beta version. I also have own IT company for some freelancing stuff. And as you might have seen from the slides from Michael, I'm also part of the open source team from Vendure. And yeah, like you may have seen, I also really like to contribute and do things with Vendure. So what we want to do is take a look again at Vendure. Now we saw a lot of new things, really new things. But we want to take a look again. Hopefully you might have seen a lot of this already. For those of you who didn't see a lot of Vendure code yet, now's the time. Yeah, so like I said, first step is understanding Vendure, because I think understanding the architecture of Vendure is really crucial to leverage its full potential for your own projects and also for your own, like not just for your own projects with Vendure, but also like side projects, not or like outside of Vendure. So one thing really important to understand, I think, is it's open source. So this brings a lot of benefits, and also actually a study from like the impact of open source on the European economy showed that like every €1 you invest in open resource development brings €10 in return in the European GPT. Yeah. So basically, since money is time, we can also kind of think about that every minute we spend on digging into open source code and like learning from it is also a really a huge gain that we get for ourselves. So another thing, the other benefits, of course, which is like kind of obvious, but like should be still considered, is that we have really high quality of code. Since it went through many refactorings, we are using a huge variety of tools, and it's documented. Many people used it in production with like millions of products and everything out there. So it's really like you can consider it as a like treasure chest where you can learn things from. So another thing is, of course, the contribution from open source contributors that bring a lot of new views and iterations to the software code base, and also the architecture. Like we heard many times already, Nest.js and Typeworm is like the best on the market, and we are using it. So we are also gaining all the benefits from that. But what I want to do is take a look now on the left side of this little tech stack diagram. I want to take a look again of to the features that Vendure provides to us, which are some listed here. To take the step, there are actually 1,500 files I just recently saw to discover. And not even that, there are a lot of side repositories as well, with like templates for the storefront, for plugin templates overall, or from like Pine Labs. The plugin repository is also really worth a watch. So since this is a lot and we may get lost into it, and actually maybe at this point the question, who of you guys actually took a deep look inside the Vendure code base so far? Okay, quite a few. Actually, I think also the contributor count increased a lot, so that's good to see. But for those of you who didn't, it's the time to do it now.
That's the wrong image.
That's what you signed up for. So let me figure out the shortcut. I configured again, yes. All right, so this is the Vendure repository that you might have seen at least, which contains packages. And obviously there are quite a lot already. So first learning that I can give you, actually only these two are important. At least, at least if you want to find something. So first learning I had is for like front-end code for the admin UI, I actually always ended up here, which is not the right one. So yes, we will look into the source of the admin UI, which contains a library. So here also another learning or like a little pitfall I had. I was always searching for where are the products, like their orders, the marketing, but yeah, it's called catalog. And there are tons of components inside, like you can see here. And also tons of opportunities to learn something and like reproduce and reuse for your own code base. Of course, there are also then always providers, which are just like services in Vendure, in Angular. And like I said, the other really important package is the core package, where we find everything related to the API, all services, which is also mostly the first thing I look up to when I want to find how features got implemented and actually done. And also the common, where's the common? Here. And also all the common definitions, for example, the finite state machine, and also the configurable options, yes, which are also awesome. Yeah, this was really just a quick overview, just to give you a soft introduction to the code base. Don't be afraid to look deeper into it. It's actually fun at some point, because at first I started looking into it because of debugging and like errors that you had to hunt down. And I just went into the node modules, but yeah, like what is stopping me from just looking up the code directly? And that's what I did, and you know as well. All right, so since we have a quite big overview now, what is actually included in the code base, let's try to categorize it a little into core features that we can learn from. And these are actually already categorized for us in the documentation itself. So there we see a lot of features like authentication, payments, products, and stuff like that, which at first sign are just features that are kind of common to e-commerce frameworks and sound kind of basic. But this doesn't mean that there was a lot of effort spent into making it good. So once we take a deeper look, we actually find some nice concepts that we're used to actually enable all these core concepts and features that Vendure offer to us. One of my most favorite features that I use a lot are strategies and configurable operations. Configurable operations are basically also just strategies, but with input that you can freely define. And a really good example here is like just a screenshot from the collections page, where you can freely define for what facet values the collection should filter. And that's also the first thing that I want to, like how I usually approach things is if I find something really well done, I just look it up, and if I later have a like requirement again that's kind of similar to that, I just go there, or I like this, and then dig deeper into the code base again. So I can highly recommend you every time you are writing an algorithm that also maybe requires some additional input, um, just use strategies. It's really making your life easier when you want to configure something on the fly, or if you have many customers that need their own customization, then that's really the way to go. So the next feature that I think is really nice and easy to do is the finite state machine. There's actually a helper class, and to be honest, I didn't know that for quite a long time, and I always just used enums to define a state, which maybe sometimes is enough, but to really control a process and the behavior of states, it's not much more complicated or complex to use the finite state machine that is, for example, used by the order state machine that we all know. So again, whenever I face the challenge of having different states and like behavior connected to that, for example, that there are conditions to transfer from one state to another, or to know which next states are actually possible, then that's the way to go again. Yeah, another really nice thing for me that I observed a lot is the advanced TypeScript. I'm not sure how you usually dealt with TypeScript in the past, but I'm the type of guy that used any a lot, like a lot. But since I started digging through the code and saw like all these advanced TypeScript definitions from the written by Michael, I actually started to learn and improve myself as well with TypeScript. So here's one of my really favorite examples, which is from a list component for the UI, where Michael did it like this, that you just basically give the abstract class your carry document, and you can then derive from this what sort and filter parameters are like possible, and you have perfect type completion for that to configure all your sort and filter things for the UI. So yeah, really worth a look in my opinion. Another thing, of course, is the end-to-end testing. We also heard it again today that it's a big learning for other community members as well. Here we actually see one that failed. So on my machine it didn't run. But there are reasons to that, and it's good to know that there are reasons and to find out early before you deploy something to production. And like we also, I think we heard the question before of like vtest is used, and the answer was, no, I'm just using the Vendure test package. And that's basically also my point, because I mean, we are using vtest beneath, but the test package from Vendure already provides a lot of little tools that makes it just easier to write the end-to-end tests. And basically, I mean, it's I think no secret. You can, if you create a new entity and you have just CRUD operations, you can just take an end-to-end test that exists already and copy paste it, like put in your own carries, and you have a working end-to-end test, hopefully working end-to-end test. So that's kind of worth the effort to take a look there as well. Another and last thing that I want to mention again is the plugin system itself, which I think is really, really well designed. It's maybe nothing that we can learn a lot from, since we're like kind of forced to use Vendure plugins if we want to extend it. But one thing that I just recently like realized is that we can access the runtime configuration within the plugin tag itself, and based on that we can also access all options from other plugins, maybe from your own plugins, or like everything that the user configured or that we configured in the environment, and based on that we can freely add some custom fields or some strategies, or like we can do a lot of things just with one annotation. So that's also worth to take a look. And also, I think the caching service that we just heard about today, I think if I would do this talk 1 year later, I think this would also end up here as something that's worth a look. All right, since we now took a look at some core features that I at least personally like, maybe I would also like to know from you guys if there are some things that you are like also kind of proud of to use or that you discovered, or are there any things apart from what I mentioned that you think is really worth to take a look at? Or is this a good compilation already? All right. The microphone, right?
One thing I admire that Vendure does is the way it handles list options for paginated lists. The scripts that yeah. So those are generated by a code gen script.
Yeah, that's also something that I reapplied to different projects as well.
Yeah.
No. So my question would be, maybe it's not a feature of Vendure, but I would be really interested in, since you're a committer also to the code base, what's your typical setup like? Do you have a fork of Vendure and then link it using NPM? The second and even more important question for me would be to, is it possible, and do you do it like that also regarding Svelte, the debugging? Is it possible to like hook into the debugger into an API call, and is all this working, or how do you usually work? And especially this question applies to the front end, because we have a Next front end built, and there we have particular problems with the server side debugging of the Next component. And some questions related, but it begins with what's your setup? How do you like fork Vendure to use it to make changes to it that you later on contribute? And the second one is debugging.
Yeah, usually I also just fork the repository, have my own clone ready, and maybe a package I actually forgot now, which is kind of nice, is the dev server package, where you can like kind of just build a proof of concept for ideas that you have. Here are also some example plugins for example already that you can use, and you just use your like dev config, and it's like ready to go. You just see here the scripts, right, to populate your dev server and to just use it. I think you can, since this should now use, actually I don't know what is configured by default. MySQL? Yeah, I think it's actually should use SQL.js by default. I sometimes also have my whole environment plugged in already, and since I'm using the same names of the environment variables for my own project as well, I just copy paste this and go from there. So this dev server is the package I use to test some ideas or contributions that I made. And here also you can debug by just pressing this button, basically. I don't know if, actually I'm not sure if VS Code also offers all the possibilities, but basically you just make a red button here, and then it will stop to also solve your other questions.
Do you know if this is even working when just having the NPM dependency, or do I need the TS, like the linked version?
You attach your debugger to the node process.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You have all the tracing.
But what you have to do then, if you just use the package, you have to go into the node modules and put the logging points there.
And locate the TS files,
Yeah. But there you need to make sure that you're taking the JS files, not something, not the typings. Yeah, all right. Good question.
Yeah, it's just you asked for features which are maybe hidden or which helped a lot. we quite recently stumbled over like the history entries you can add to entities, and we actually didn't use them enough, as we now found out, because if you start debugging in a live environment, those history entries can really help you to see, okay, the order code changed now, or like the order changed state. There are already lots of history entries by default, but you can extend that really well. Also, like you can even write Angular components to display them properly. It's really, really cool feature, and we didn't use that enough, and we need to now make that work afterwards. But that's a cool feature, I guess.
You can also add custom fields to them now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think for everyone that will watch the video in the past again, I think we compiled a really good overview about the most important features now that we can take a look at. So all what is left is the mindset that I kind of started to develop, which at first I was just playing with Vendure, then of course started customizing it. But at one point I asked myself, what would Vendure actually do? So I started customizing Vendure using Vendure itself. And that's something we can just maybe try out again with something, like I asked ChatGPT to give me some use cases and some requirements for just a random idea I had, or actually not that random because a customer requested it to me once, a project management tool, like just some basic features like that a project could have many states that require also some transfer conditions, for example, that at first the project is in the planning process, and when you want to start a project, that you have to validate that there are tasks or workers assigned and that the budget is planned. All this kind of stuff can become complex, can basically sounds like a lot of ifs, but can be solved quite simple with the finite state machine. So actually I didn't even check the time when I started, but basically what I want to show is how I usually start with this. So I usually ask myself, like I said, what would Vendure do? And at this point I would remember that orders actually have a similar behavior like that. So what I would usually start is, since it's kind of easy to visualize it, I would start in the admin UI where I saw that orders, for example, have it. So I know, for example, that in the order detail component, there should be something related to states. And here I see already that there are like some type state things going on that we can transition to some states. And I should also see somewhere this part, that there is a list of next states defined that we can transition to. So of course I would then go deeper into the code and try to find again where this is defined. And at this point I would find out, next states is actually defined on the order itself. So this would lead me then to the order entity that I'm receiving from the API, sorry. So I would take a look here next to the API and the resolvers of the entity. Since like some properties of the order entity itself are just some resolved fields that you can see here. They are not part of the database. So usually if there's something that kind of sounds special to me, I look or check the resolvers first. And here it's actually not. Here it's good. And here I see that it's coming from the order service. So like I said in the beginning, usually you find everything hidden inside these services that is interesting to us. So next thing again, we see that the order state machine is used, and here we actually see the helper class already for the finite state machine. And it's a little difficult to get a whole overview of the state machine, but it's actually quite small and easy to configure using this helper function. So basically what I would then do now to build this requirement, I would just do this, copy it, put it somewhere else, and then go here. Okay, and then just rename it. So this would be then our project state machine. Done. This I better don't do now. All right. Yeah, I think this hopefully kind of showed how I would approach things. I just like to visualize first where was it used, where did I get a good feeling using it already with Vendure, and then I just end up digging through the code, trying to understand where things are coming from and what things I can copy, basically. Yeah, I mean, I use the word copying now a lot, but basically, you don't just copy things and you can right away use it. You still, of course, have to think about it. You have to go through the code and understand the code. And this is, I think, the moment where I really learned and improved my own code. So, yeah, I think we can also go through different examples as ChatGPT were throwing at me, but I feel like most of them are easy again. For, just to name it again, literally these two I never read before. And this here, for example, so heavily sounds like a strategy where you can input some configurable operations again to tell from which date or from what project whatsoever to generate stuff. And here, filter sounds for me like copying the detail list and the list and detail components. So what I maybe want to try as the last thing together with you, are there any challenges that you faced in the past? I feel like during the breaks, I somehow listened to some talks and I already passed by and was like, yeah, you could solve it like this. So question in the audience again, are there some challenges that you recently faced and now after hopefully also thinking, what would Vendure do? Did you gain a new perspective on that, or is there something that you just want to bring up and say once? So everything's solved for you already. That's also good. I appreciate that. Yeah, I already had the feeling that only smart people are around here. So I feel like challenges are already solved. So yeah, this would basically also conclude it for me. I can and you already. Yeah, so good job to everyone. Hopefully in the future you will also think more often about Vendure, what would Vendure do? And yeah, thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you, Kevin. I've got to say, I'll let you in a secret. That's how I develop the features too. Just copy something that exists, paste it, rename it. I think everyone does that.